You didn't get married to feel like your relationship is purely transactional, right? You are more than roommates. You are more than co-parents. You guys are partners, and you are not meant to do this partnership as two individuals who feel alone, who feel like you're living parallel lives. And yet, maybe you are here.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. So last week in my solo episode, episode 231, I talked about things that you could do to revive your marriage if you are feeling like you're more of like roommates and co-parents rather than romantic partners, and daily habits that you can begin doing or remember doing so that you can continue nurturing that and get back on track with your marriage so that it doesn't feel like you guys are disconnected and just feeling like you're in the business of being roommates or co-parents. And I had a total mom brain moment. I actually meant to record this episode and release this one first, but you know what? I'm just going to own it and say mom brain, perimenopause, whatever you want to call it, ADHD, and do things in the reverse order. So this episode is about how you can recognize or identify that you are in the roommate phase and talk about why this happens and how to stop it. And if you just so happen to be listening to this episode before you listen to episode 231, then ignore what I just said. You are here at the right time. And go ahead and listen to episode 231 after you listen to this one, because that will give you the habits on what you can start to do to get out of this phase. And if you happen to listen to 231 and you're a loyal listener and you're listening to the episodes as they come out in order, I love you. And also, I think you get it. We're all moms here, right? We are the best. We are so understanding. And I still think that this is a great episode for you to listen to, even if you listen to last week's episode, because maybe you listen to that and you're like, well, we're good. And maybe after listening to this, you're like, oh, actually, maybe I do need to go do those things. Maybe I do need to go listen back to that because I kind of just pass it off as something that we don't need. Okay? So with that said, we're going to be talking about how to identify, how to spot that you're in the roommate phase. And it all starts with recognizing that you did not get married just to become co-managers of your home. You didn't get married to feel like your relationship is purely transactional, right? You are more than roommates. You are more than co-parents. You guys are partners, and you are not meant to do this partnership as two individuals who feel alone, who feel like you're living parallel lives. And yet, maybe you are here. I've certainly been there multiple times throughout my marriage. We've been married now for 11 years, co-parenting for 14 years, okay? And so there is a moment in almost every single marriage after kids when you look at your partner and you realize, I see you more as my co-parent and my roommate more than I see you as my lover. You're dividing the chores, you're trading off with the bedtime routines, you're updating each other on logistics, but you can't remember the last time you shared something real, something deep. The last time you belly laughed and felt like your cheeks hurt because you were just dying from laughter. And you can't remember the last time you felt close, that deep emotional intimacy. Now, I've seen this time and time again from my clients. This is a very common occurrence. And the couples I coach know this as the roommate phase. And if you are in this roommate phase, it doesn't mean that you don't love each other. All it means is that you've slipped into survival mode and you're just functioning, but you're not connecting. And here's the truth. If you don't catch this, the roommate phase doesn't just go away once your kids get older. The roommate phase actually starts draining the connection more and more. It grows the distance. The intimacy becomes harder and harder to nurture. And like I said earlier, it just starts to feel like you're living parallel lives under the same roof, to the point where maybe even sometimes you're like, I don't even remember us being in the same room other than when we're sleeping and maybe when we're getting ready for bed. But we don't intentionally choose to be in the same room, to do the same things, to connect. Okay, so today I want to use this episode to help you recognize when you are in this phase, understand why it happens, and how to begin to shift out of this before that distance grows too deep where it becomes this almost like this ocean between you two, and it feels like you guys are too far gone and you guys are way beyond that point where you feel like it's possible for you to get back to each other, for you to find each other again. So let's rewind and talk about what the roommate phase is. So the roommate phase is when things feel very transactional and functional. Okay, so you guys are doing your day-to-day life, right? Who's getting the kids ready, or what part of that are you doing? Who's picking up the kids? Who's taking them to their extracurriculars? Who's taking them to their appointments? Who's cooking dinner? Who's doing the grocery shopping? Who's paying the bills? It's very like responsibility driven, and it feels more like a job. And what's missing is the emotional piece, the emotional intimacy, the playfulness. It just seems very serious, right? What brought you two together to begin with is far gone. You don't even remember that version of your relationship anymore. It's just, let's get shit done so that we can get to bed and do this all over again tomorrow. And the root cause behind this is actually mutual withdrawal. So it's not the kids. The kids is like the catalyst, right? That's the trigger that's creating this reaction to shift into this functional aspect of your relationship. But it's actually both of you, consciously or subconsciously, withdrawing from each other. So you guys are heavily focusing on getting shit done. But what you're also doing is you're not reaching out to each other emotionally anymore or as often. And maybe you're even avoiding conflict, right? You guys are very careful about how you talk so that you don't get into things, or you're thinking, I'm too tired to talk about this, or you're so much in survival mode, you are dismissing your own feelings and you're not even realizing that things are frustrating you and building up. And you can tell this by what you're not addressing, right? So maybe you're blowing up because you're not realizing soon enough that things are bothering you. And so it builds and builds and builds until you can't take it anymore. Okay. And maybe some resentment is building. This is what causes this lack of interest to connect, to spend time with each other, to make time for each other, to go on those dates or check in with each other. So this isn't for a lack of love. It's really about being in survival mode and not intentionally connecting, right? Like I said, there's mutual withdrawal. So that's creating that disconnection between you two. Now, why does this happen? Well, we all know this. Parenthood is a lot. It demands a lot, energy wise, mentally, emotionally, physically. And so naturally, we're going to rise up to the occasion. And what happens is because it's so new, so foreign, so demanding, we shift our focus towards the kids, right? And with that comes a focus on logistics, a focus on responsibilities, a focus on making sure we're raising them with the values that are important to us, raising them essentially to not be assholes, right? And we're not going to downplay how much that involves. By the end of the day, we are exhausted. And when we look at our partner, we're like, oh, well, this is just the season that we're in. And we know that being the two adults in the family, that we're going to understand that, hey, we're tired. We're not going to have the energy to invest in our relationship right now. So let's just tackle this and see what we have left over. And it becomes this unspoken understanding that too often plays out for too long in your relationship. That understanding that you two carry now becomes your baseline and becomes normal day-to-day life for your relationship. And you know that your marriage takes consistent nurturing. Well, this is what happens when that consistency starts to waver or even disappear. And so then what happens when you don't consistently nurture your relationship? Connection starts to dwindle. Communication starts to dwindle. And then communication starts to become more difficult and challenging. And then that's when you have unspoken needs come up, right? So you've got emotional needs not met because you're not sharing your needs. You've got partnership needs that aren't being met because they're not being addressed. And so the both of you start to retreat into your regular routines, whether that's doing your own thing, practicing your own self-care, doing housework, parenting. And then if you work, then you've got that, right? You just kind of settle into your individual routine, but there is no intersection in that routine. And without intentional repair, the relationship starts to fall flat emotionally. There's no passion there. And research shows that when we withdraw, those patterns of withdrawal start to predict ongoing loneliness. So even if you are not actively, regularly fighting, this consistent withdrawal, having this pattern of not connecting, can lead to loneliness. It doesn't always have to be something big that creates issues in a marriage. It could be things that you're not even noticing because your focus is elsewhere. Now, here are 3 signs that you are in the roommate phase. Number 1, you're living separate lives. You've got different hobbies, different routines, and there is no overlap in your life together other than coming together to parent, coming together to handle the household things. Number 2, you're lacking emotional intimacy. You're having very surface level conversations about logistics, about responsibilities, and there's no deeper sense of sharing. You're not sharing things about things that matter to you, about how you feel, about how things are impacting you, or about your dreams or fears. And then number 3, you guys have become numb to each other emotionally. So you've become indifferent about things, right? People say if you fight with each other, it's because you care, right? So along that same vein, if you're not fighting, it's because you don't care as much anymore. Maybe you think, well, what's the point? Because the connection isn't there, because you don't feel close, things that are happening, you're kind of just dismissing it because there's no fight in you anymore. Okay? So while fighting is not the ideal way of communicating, and there are better ways to communicate the issues that are in your marriage, fighting has some passion behind it, right? Because you feel disappointed, because you have set up this expectation or standard for your marriage. And when they're not delivering, or when they surprise you in a not so great way, you still care enough to say something. But if you don't care enough to say something, then the connection has been severed. Okay, so those are the 3 signs to look out for. So if you feel like your spouse feels more like you're in the business of doing life together, right? Being a parent, being a roommate, more than you feel like you're in a marriage, then you're probably in the roommate phase. If you're avoiding bringing things up because you're afraid that you're going to rock the boat, you're in the roommate phase together. Or if you feel like you're lonely with your spouse, then when you're actually by yourself, another sign that you're in the roommate phase, okay? And you need to recognize that you're in this phase, because when it's left unchecked, this is what creates chronic loneliness and resentment. And I'm sure you felt tension and disconnect from your parents when you guys were growing up. Your kids are picking up on that as well, right? They are going to notice the lack of warmth between you guys. They're going to notice that the atmosphere, the vibe of the home is shifting. There's a coldness between you two. There's a lack of unity. There's a lack of partnership between you two. There's a lack of friendship, even if we're going to get down to the foundation of it. But the good news is that this is reversible. But the part that you need to work on first is recognizing when you get into this, right? Because as parents, we're going to enter busy seasons. And arguably, every season can be considered busy. But if we take a look at what we just have in front of us, instead of zooming out and taking a look at our lives as a whole, we're going to continue to have excuses that are going to be obstacles and be reasons for why we don't consistently nurture our marriage. But if you zoom out and look at it as a whole and think, oh, well, with every phase, there's going to be something. We're going to be busy, whether it's physically busy, mentally busy, right? Having a teenager, mentally busy. Having younger kids, physically busy, right? And so if we're going to be busy the whole way through, are we willing to use busyness as a reason for why we are not investing in our marriage? If you fast forward to 10 years from now, 18 years from now, do you want to be able to feel like your marriage is the backbone of your family? Do you want to feel like your marriage is strong? It's something that you can rely on. It's something that is resilient. It's something that you enjoy. If your answer to those is yes, I want that, then you got to take busyness out of the equation and find a way to prioritize your marriage. First, awareness. Name the phase that you're in so you're both on the same page. And then start to choose a routine that you two can follow in the season that you're in, so that you know that you're consistently nurturing your marriage. And I'm not saying you have to spend 5 hours a day or even a week connecting. Find what works for you, right? Whether that's daily small check-ins, or going on a weekly date, or watching a show together to start, and then doing things that build on that connection. Start talking more. Maybe even making boundaries for when it's time for you to connect. You don't talk about the kids. You don't talk about work. You don't talk about the house. And you talk about things that matter more to you. The fact of the matter is, the hardest part is starting, right? Because it's not a part of your routine right now. But once you start and get in the habit with it, it doesn't even need to be something that you schedule. It just becomes part of your natural daily flow. My husband and I, we don't schedule time to talk unless it's like a longer conversation and we've got things to do. Then, yeah, we're going to be like, okay, when's the best time for us to talk about this? But we are building our emotional intimacy and continuing to nurture it throughout the day, right? So if I feel something, I'm going to share it because my husband is one of my best friends and I want him to know where I'm at, what I'm feeling, what I'm wanting, what I'm needing when I know about it, when I've processed it, so that he knows what version of me exists today and vice versa. If something's bothering him, if he's recognizing that he's got a need, then I would like him to tell me sooner than later as well, so that I know what version of him exists today, so that I can feel like we are close, so I can feel like we know each other, right? So be aware of what step you're in and name it, and then pick something to have that connection stay alive. And just as a reminder, consistency will beat out grand gestures every single time. Okay? So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to make a ton of changes. Just start small. Start small, get used to it, add something else, get used to it, add something else, and it won't even feel like it takes any effort once you get used to it, right? Kind of like brushing your teeth. It's just a part of your routine. Like showering is just something you do. You don't have to try hard to do it unless you're super tired. Then yeah, it's kind of an effort, right? But it's something that has become a part of your day-to-day routine. Same for your marriage, right? If it feels like it's like a big hump to get over, just find what small thing you can start to do. Do it for a whole week and see how it feels. If it's still too big, how can you shrink it down to be more manageable? And then continue to work off of that, okay? So I want you to reflect, see if you are, in fact, in the roommate phase. Are you recognizing that by listening to what I've shared in this episode, you're like, oh my gosh, that is us, right? That's us. Cool. Name it. Talk about it, right? And name it and then talk about it with your partner and see what you guys miss about your relationship and try and find a small way to bring it back. Okay? And if you are feeling a bit anxious about talking about this, check out my conflict to connection guide. Okay? This is a great way for you to process how you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're needing, what you're wanting, so that you can feel clear and confident about bringing it up with your partner. Because the last thing we want to do is avoid this, right? We don't want to be in denial. We don't want to stick our head in the sand like an ostrich if you want your marriage to succeed, okay? I don't want your marriage to slip into emotional withdrawal. I want you to notice that maybe you're in that pattern and start to make an effort to reach out for each other, to connect, okay? So go grab that guide. And of course, as always, if you feel like you're ready to take the next step and get support with getting yourselves out of this roommate phase, letting your marriage do a complete 180 to the point where you go from you feel like a stranger and I don't know how to hang out with you and I don't know how to talk to you, to feeling, I'm going to quote one of my favorite couples I've ever worked with, smitten with each other, then let's talk. I offer a free clarity call for those who are interested in learning more about coaching and how it can support their marriage. So if that's something that is piquing your interest, then click the link in the show notes to schedule that call so that we can get to know each other and see how coaching can support you and help your marriage do a 180. And that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please take the time to check in to see if your marriage is in this roommate phase, and please do something about it, okay? Not only will it help your marriage get stronger, but it will also help you be happier because your marriage is the number one relationship that impacts your happiness in life. But also, your marriage is the blueprint for your kids and how they will view relationships and approach them when they get older. So, set them up for success by being happier. Win-win for everybody. Okay, if you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please share this with them. Better yet, share this in your Instagram stories and tag me so I can give you a shout out. If you love this episode, make sure you go check out episode 231 because that was meant to be the follow-up for this episode. And if you have been loving this show, I so appreciate you. Thank you for being such a loyal listener. Please do me a favor and leave a rating and review on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts. I would so appreciate it. That's what helps this show grow and help others like you find this show and get the help that they need so that they can enjoy their marriage and feel confident about the example that they're setting for their kids. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you back here on the next episode. Bye.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.